Whether you're a branded veteran looking for some new niche combos, or a beginner looking to learn the basics, or maybe you just keep getting your turn skipped with Ash and you're just looking for some other alternative lines, well, this is the video for you. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Cards and Coffee. Today we're going to be digging into a bunch of Branded Despia combos. One of the best things about this deck is it has such a high ceiling and it's so versatile in the way you can go about the lines you try to combo. But what if I told you there's combos you can do without actually activating Branded Fusion, as well as combos where you can search Mercurier to help play around Ash before you even activate the card to begin with. But first, before we dig into the combos and all the test hands, please go grab yourself a cup of coffee or something. That way you guys can sit down and tune in. Let's do this. Alright, so before hopping into combos and test hands, I'm really quickly going to run through the deck that I'm going to be playing today. I think if you're somebody who's considering going to the 250th YCS, this list here is probably going to look like most of the players' decks in the field. All the Branded Despia decks right now are about 80% the same anyway, and it really just comes down to the tech 9 to 13 cards you decide to play. But that being said, for a very standard list, of course, 3 Albert, Tragedy, and the Adlib for our Despia package. We got the 3 Albaz, even though you could get away with 2, and 2 Cartesia, even though you can get away with 1. We got the Albion, the Kit, the Mercurier, the Lubellion, the Sornier, and of course the Dark Magician, an honorary branded card. And for the last monster in the deck, 3 Ash, no Nibiru. The card's very good, but very bad at the same time. It really just depends on what you predict people to be doing at the YCS. But with how the game stands right now, I personally just expect a bunch of Arise Heart Pass, so for that reason, Nibiru is not in the main. Moving on to the spells, one thing that I think is going to be very popular is going to be 3 copies of Crossout Designator. 100% you're going to be citing this card, but don't be shocked if you see players maining it. For consistency, we have the Gold Sark and the Foolish Burial, as well as 6 emergency teleports in the form of Fusion Deployment and 3 Branded Opening. Of course, we have the God card, Branded Fusion, Branded Red, and Branded Lost. And of course, for more standard stuff, you got the 1 Retribution, the 1 Expulsion, and really the last 3 cards, again, flex slot, but since this build is playing Crossout, I'm opting to just play 3 copies of Impermanence. Really, this card could be anything, but with what you have in front of you, I think this is a pretty standard list that we can do some pretty cool combos with. So let's get into it. So really quickly, while I'm shuffling up, I wanted to give a quick shout out to my channel's sponsor, Next Level Anime. They're the guys who make the gear that I'm wearing now and what I wear at events, and that's something you're into, please go check them out. They have so much amazing gear. If you're a big anime fan like me, then they definitely have something for you, and they're super affordable, only $15 a shirt. It's so good compared to all the other competitors. Plus, not only that, if you use my code Cards&CoffeeTCG, you'll get 10% off at checkout, and a portion of that profit does go back to the channel, helping me make more videos for you. Alright, so I think that's a pretty good shuffle. We'll give it a good cut, and we'll see what we can do. Starting things off, we have a Branded Loss, a Fusion Deployment, a Branded in Red, a Foolish Burial, and a Branded Fusion. This hand is actually pretty dang good. So there's actually a couple of lines that I see right off the bat, and one actually plays right into Ash Blossom, but gives you a line after the fact to still go basically full combo. So I think I'm going to show you guys both. We'll do the one that plays into Ash first, and then the one that tries to play around it. Oh, and a really quick disclaimer, I do not claim to know all the combos of this deck, but I definitely have enough to at least give you guys some ideas for some combos going forward. But that being said, if you guys see a line that I might have missed, comment down below. Who knows? Maybe you see something even more broken. So this first combo is going to play into Ash, and the reason you're going to do this is because since this hand can already play after you get ashed, it makes it to where if it doesn't get ashed, then your board gets even crazier. So sometimes in a hand like this, the risk versus reward might actually be worth playing into Ash, just because you know if you don't get hit with it, then the reward is going to be great. And if you don't, of course, in this hand, then you could keep playing anyway. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and activate the Foolish Burial, and we're going to dump Tragedy to grab us Alibur. Tragedy hits the grave, and then Alibur comes to hand. Now that we've added Alibur, we can activate Fusion Deployment. That way we can reveal the Dusk Dragon and get our Cartesia to the field. We'll summon Cartesia, and then now we're free to normal summon Alibur. Obviously, this is just to dodge Imperm or Veiler, but honestly, with how great our hand is right now, I actually would let the Imperm or Veiler resolve, just because on the off chance if they have a second Imperm or Veiler, I can save the Cartesia for where it really matters against something like Albion or Lubellion. But before we normal that Alibur, I am going to activate the Branded Loss in case I do decide to shotgun that Cartesia. I want to make sure this is on the field, that way I at least maximize my ability to search. We're going to normal summon that Alibur, we're going to activate its effect, and we're going to assume it goes through because most people aren't going to Imperm in this board state. You could add a bunch of different things, but in this case I'm going to add Retribution just because I know I'm going to discard a card throughout this combo. Now really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and run through the combo, and then we'll go back to this state where we're just going to assume I get Ash Blossomed. So again, you have a bunch of different options when doing this. Of course, you're going to dump Albaz, but the more standard approach to what you're going to do is you're going to dump yourself the Lubellion. You're going to go ahead and summon Albion. Lost will activate as Chainlink 2 and Albion Chainlink 1. This is a very popular point where people like to chain Cartesia to put Alibur in grave. That way you can banish it from the grave with the Albion's effect. Since we already have Branded Loss, I think that's something you definitely could do right now. But normally what I like to do is wait until I bring out Branded Loss with Lubellion. That way when the Cartesia is ready, it can trigger itself while Loss is on the field, giving you a search that you might need to end your board with. But again, like I said, we already have Loss, so we're going to go ahead and proceed. We're going to use Cartesia's effect as Chainlink 3, and we're going to go ahead and Fusion Summon. These two will hit the grave. The Dust Dragon hits the field. Lost will go ahead and give us a search. Albion will go to hand because this is another way to dump something for Branded in red in case something goes wrong. Then Albion resolves. We'll banish the Fallen of Albaz, and of course that Alibur we were just talking about. So now Lubellion hits the field, and we can activate the Dust Dragon as Chainlink 2, and Lubellion Chainlink 1 will pitch the trap that we searched. Now we have a couple of options with the Dust Dragon. We could be dumping the Adlib, making our Branded in red really insane on our opponent's turn. Or of course, since Dust Dragon is Chainlink 2, we can dump the Dark Magician. That way we can shuffle it back with Lubellion to go straight into Dragoon. Really, I don't think either of those options is incorrect. Maybe it's more matchup dependent. So I'm just going to leave these two right here. That way you guys can decide for yourself. But personally, either way sounds pretty broken to me. So again, now Lubellion will shuffle itself back alongside the Dark Magician or the Fallen of Albaz. Like we mentioned, you're going to make Dragoon or Mirror Jade. And then immediately after that, we're going to summon back that Lubellion from the grave by tributing off the Albion. Normally, this is where you would bring Lost out from the deck, which is why I like having Cartesia on the field still. That way, once the Lost hits the field, now Cartesia can fuse and get you that search now. Because now, really, all this is for is getting Albion in the grave. That way, we can get our trap card. After this, I'd probably use Albion, dumping an opening for protection. Albion's going to draw us a random card. We're going to set that Branded in red, and in the end phase, we're going to grab the trap. Branded Expulsion is one of my favorite cards right now, not only because of the puppet lock, but in the Kashtira matchup, it really helps out with your first turn combo. Sometimes it could be really awkward going Mirror Jade against Kashtira, so if they start their turn with something like Unicorn, it feels a little awkward to banish it with Mirror Jade because they could just follow it up by summoning another Kashtira from their hand. But now on resolution, you can flip this after you've banished their monster, get rid of your Mirror Jade, and then of course summon out two monsters, one on your side and of course one on your opponent's. Basically, it's going to put them on normal summon Arise Heart or Birth into their normal summon, which we could typically deal with anyway. One thing to mention is you could add the Cartesia back to hand. Personally, I probably would, just looking at how this is, because we do have the one Tragedy in grave and we still have the Alibur banished. Also, if we did go the Dragoon line, we would still have Albaz banished as well. So really, it's up to you. It just depends on how you played out your field. But don't forget, if you did leave Albaz or if you did leave the Alibur, once you Expulsion, whichever one you do summon to your field, you can get the effects as well. It's pretty broken. All right, now rewinding to this point really quick. Now we're going to assume that we actually get hit with Ash Blossom on this Branded Fusion. Again, this hand was crazy enough that we could have played around Ash regardless, and I will show that after this as well. But for the sake of this line, we're going to go ahead and assume that we did get Ash Blossomed, and now we're going to go from here. After that resolves, we're going to go ahead and use Cartesia, fusing this off into our Dust Dragon. Dust Dragon hits the field, and its effect will be Chainlink 1, and then Branded and Lost will be Chainlink 2. We're going to go ahead and add ourselves a copy of Fallen of Albaz while dumping an Albion from the extra deck. Then I'm sure you guys can see where it's going from here. We're going to activate the Branded in red, grabbing ourselves back the Alibur. That way we could banish it alongside the Albaz to make our Lubellion. Lubellion will hit the field, and then of course we're going to pitch the Retribution that we searched. Albaz will go back. Lubellion will go back. Mirror Jade will hit the field. And then, of course, you have the Branded in Retribution to add the Branded in red back to your hand. That way we can target the Tragedy. We'll set it face down. And then at the end of the turn, the Albion will go ahead and set us a trap. We'll grab ourselves that Expulsion again. And then, of course, we also have the option to add the Cartesia back to our hand as well, depending if we want to bring it back with Expulsion or not. So again, not as broken as the first turn board, obviously, because we got Ash Blossomed on our Branded Fusion. But we still have our Dust Dragon and our Mirror Jade, alongside the Expulsion, and of course the live Branded in red. Alright, now back to the starting hand again. I really didn't expect to get so much out of the first hand, but I figured why not show you everything. I think once you see it, it'll be kind of obvious, but what we're going to do first, of course, is start off with Fusion Deployment, and then of course bringing out the Cartesia by revealing the Granganol. Next, we'll activate the Foolish Burial. Once again, we will dump the Tragedy to grab ourselves the Aliber. Next, we're going to start off with that loss, just in case we chain Cartesia, and then we're going to normal the Aliber, and just like last time, we're going to go ahead and add the Retribution for discard fodder. And again, if you were missing one of these 3 cards, you could obviously just add one of them, which is what's really crazy about this combo. But then after that, we are just going to activate the Cartesia, fusing itself with the Aliber. Dusk will hit the field, and of course, just like last time, 2 will be lost and 1 will be Dusk. In this case, we're going to add the Mercurier to hand, that way we can use it to stop Ash, and then the Dusk is going to dump the Albion. Albion will then activate. We're going to put it back on the bottom of the deck to then dump ourselves the Albaz. After that, of course, we're going to activate the Branded in red, targeting the Albaz, adding it to hand, and then of course banishing it alongside the Dusk Dragon to go straight into a Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade hits the field, and now we have a fusion with Albaz in the name, so we are now free to activate Branded Fusion, and if they Ash, we have the Tri-Brigade to negate. So we're going to assume they Ash, and we use the Mercurier. We're going to go ahead and of course dump the Albaz from deck to grave. Alongside him, of course, the standard stuff, we're going to dump the Lubellion, making ourselves the Albion. That way we can fuse and of course tribute it off. Albion then activates. We're going to of course banish the Albaz, and then of course we're going to banish a Dark. Lubellion will hit the field. We will discard the Retribution, and you have a couple of options that you could really make, but with what we have in front of us, one of the cool things you could do is shuffle back one of these Albazes, and then you could even put back the Tri-Brigade Mercurier you used, and then go straight into your Rinbrum. Now after that, of course, we're going to use the Lubellion, tributing off the Albion to bring itself out. Then after that, we're going to use that Retribution. We're going to get that Branded in red back to hand. We'll put it face down. We'll end our turn. This time I will opt to add the Cartesia to hand. We do have a lot banished and engraved for it. And then of course, in the end phase, Albion's going to go ahead and send us the Expulsion to the field. So there you go. Basically another crazy first turn combo while getting Ash Blossomed. We actually opened pretty crazy, but I was glad to at least show you so many lines from that one hand. Oh, and one quick note with the Dark that we banished off of this, you could have technically banished the Mercurier because you can use each effect once per turn. So you could have used the Mercurier to search and then shuffle it back with the Lubellion as well. So just another thing to get you another free card in the process that I just happened to miss. It's pretty crazy. All right, so let's shuffle this up. Hopefully we can get another hand that at least gives us a few options that we can talk about. We'll go ahead and cut this up, and our starting 5 will be Crossout Designator, Aliber, Ash, Fusion Deployment, and Crossout Designator. So this is just a very standard 2-card combo line. We have the Crossout for the Ash, so we get to be aggressive. I think I'll go ahead and show you it really quickly. That way, if you're newer to the deck, maybe you haven't seen this combo before. First, you want to activate that Fusion Deployment. Of course, we're going to reveal the Dusk Dragon to get our Cartesia. Cartesia hits the field, and again, we do this just because once we normal summon this Aliber, we have something at all times to chain to dodge something like Imperm. Branded Fusion gets added to hand. We activate it. Let's just say we had to use the Crossout. That way we don't have too many cards in our hand. Branded Fusion now resolves. We're going to go ahead and dump Albaz alongside the Lubellion. Albion hits the field, and we will use the effect banishing the Albaz alongside the Aliber. Again, you could chain the Cartesia, but I personally like saving it until we get lost. Lubellion hits the field. We're going to discard a card to Fusion Summon. Lubellion and Albaz will go back, making yourself a Mirror Jade. After that hits the field, we're going to tribute the Albion to bring back the Bestial from the grave. And then, of course, now we can use the Bestial to go ahead and grab ourselves that Branded Lost, and we've been saving this Cartesia for this exact moment. Using Cartesia earlier in the combo would have actually saved a little bit of resources. You would have had another body on the field while doing this. But by doing it this way, now we can use the Cartesia, fuse these 2 off into the Dusk Dragon, and now we have Lost triggering. We can search ourselves Mercurier or Albion or anything we need while also dumping something to grave. Really, it's up to you what you want to do, but it really comes down on what you want to end your turn with. If you want to end with something like Branded in red set, then I would highly suggest dumping something like the Adlib to grave. Really, the sky's the limit. It's up to you, and personally, I don't think there's that much of a wrong choice. I guess it's just more matchup reliant. If you're getting any value out of these combos, please comment down below. Again, and if you see something that I might have missed, then please also let me know down below. I'm sure other people would appreciate it as well. But with that being said, let's wrap things up. Let's have this be our last hand. Hopefully we can end on a good one. Our starting hand is going to be Tragedy, Dark Magician, Albion, Lubellion, and a Branded Opening. So this is one of those hands that Ash Blossom can really hurt against Branded Fusion, so rather than play into it, why not just not activate Branded Fusion? So in the draw phase, we're going to activate this opening, pitching the Tragedy to get Alibur. We'll go ahead and activate the Tragedy and of course the Alibur as well. We'll get ourselves the ad-lib, but instead of getting the Branded Fusion, we're just going to grab the Branded in red. Next, I'm pretty sure you can see where this is going, but first we're going to dump the Lubellion, that way we can get the Soraneer. We do not want to draw into this off of our Albion. Soraneer goes to hand, and now we're going to use the Albion, and of course we're going to be dumping Albaz, that way we can basically get it back with red and do our full combo from there. Albion goes to the bottom, we'll draw a random card, and then now we can activate that Branded in red, targeting that Albaz, and now we can banish this Alibur on the field. Lubellion hits the field, and now we can actually pitch a couple of things. You can pitch the Soraneer to dump the Retribution to give you follow-up, or maybe add the Branded red at the end of the turn. Or you could even pitch the Dark Magician and set up some other fusion plays if you want to go into Dragoon other than doing the Mirror Jade play. As far as resources go and getting that Branded in red back, I actually think dumping the Soraneer would probably be best. Lubellion will shuffle itself back alongside the Albaz. Albion will now hit the field, and then our Soraneer will activate in the same chain link as Albion. Retribution will now go to the grave, and then now our Albion has a couple of things it could do, but the funniest thing in this hand is actually just banishing this Dark Magician alongside any of these dragons that are in our graveyard. Dragoon hits the field, and then once again we'll use the Lubellion to bring itself back and tribute off the Albion, then use the effect to go ahead and grab us the Lost. This isn't a hand really to abuse it, at least at this point, but now we can use the Retribution, banish it to get our red back, and we do have a target. We have the Tragedy, and then now we can end our turn. We don't have a Cartesia, but we're going to go ahead and get that Expulsion as well, making our cash matchup that much better. So there you go. You got the Branded red with the ad-lib being able to do something with a Dragoon and a free discard. We happen to draw an Ash, which is pretty neat, but then of course we also have the Expulsion, being able to put a monster on their side of the field and even bring back our Alibur. That way we can get follow-up for the next turn. Also, not only that, the Lost is going to search as follow-up as well, so really sky's the limit. You could even just get free discard fodder with the Dragoon because you know you're going to get follow-up with the Alibur. Really just depends on what your opponent does when they're playing against you, but yeah, this deck is so crazy and there's so many combos we can do. I'm sure I could spend hours just showing you guys more. So that's going to wrap things up for today. I hope you guys really appreciated this. I had a lot of fun making it, and if there's more videos you guys want with this deck, please just let me know. Whether it's deck building itself or it's side decking and side deck patterns, there's all kinds of things you could talk about with any deck really, and I have so much fun making content for you guys anyways. Thanks again for tuning in. I appreciate it as always, and here's hoping to see you guys on the next one. Peace.